In this video, I'm going to take you through the world of bigger enterprises. Key points to remember. First of all, the bigger the company, the more complex the company. And some people love managing that complexity. You know, it's a challenge in itself, and it's complex. There's a lot of things going on in big companies, you know, politics and so on. So let me just put, you know, everything that I have on this slide, and then let's talk about it. So there's complexity, internal politics, there's, you know, more transactions, more employees, more, you know, more people, more customers, you know, more data, more numbers, and you know, more decisions to make every day. So the complexity is relatively immense, you know, and goes increasingly bigger as the company gets bigger. So they have shareholders. So often the shareholders, you know, are much different from the shareholders from a startup. So it's more, you know, institutional banks and, you know, traditional banks and traditional funds, you know, like 401k, retirement funds, that's going to look for more security. You're going to have a very qualified and competent management in place, most often with MBAs, you know, Master in Business Administration, who have been, you know, taught at school to manage that complexity and be, you know, execution focused. You're going to have innovation, most often only understood as, you know, R&D, research and development. So I've worked with many businesses, and it's often not completely realized that innovation is not just the product, right? It's the whole company. It's the whole. We covered this in an earlier video. It's, you know, the brand, the culture, the people, the product, you know, and so on and so on. So innovation is far more than just R&D. So it has pros and cons. I have in the next slide, we're going to cover this. And cross-functional 9 to 5 employees, right? Expertise, competencies, you know, the HR team is going to make sure, you know, they hire the right people with the right set of skills to, you know, execute the right type of job, and so on. So bigger companies is a much different animal than startups. It's as exciting for many that a startup would be exciting for others. Big companies, you know, have a lot of advantages and constraints. So some of the constraints, rigidity in a changing world, right? So, you know, employees, you know, they're really used to do routines, processes, so it's really difficult sometimes to drive change depending on the culture. You know, there's collaboration, you know, might not be always as easy, you know, with internal politics, or you know, the large amount of data and complexity, you know, makes insights, you know, scarce. It's difficult to get business insights, data analytics, and so on. It can be harder to innovate as it can be easier, right? And we're going to see this in a minute. And you know, it has some constraint. Basically, it's bigger, more complex, less rigid, you know, so it's sometimes more difficult to change things in a nutshell. So the advantages, though, they have built barriers to entry, right? They have an established brand, you know, they have a market reach and a distribution and networks of distributors to be able to quickly roll out products to the market. The customers usually trust them, and they've invested a lot of money, and they have the ability to invest a lot of money in building that trust. So customers trust those brands, right? Think, you know, Nike, Under Armour, you know, Johnson & Johnson, Merck KGaA, Merck and Co, and, you know, Sony, and so on and so on. So they've built a certain level of trust. They have patents to protect the technologies, and they have money, and that's the key. They have money, and to hire talent, to hire people, and to get things done. They can, with that money, they can acquire startups and things like this. So big enterprises and startups, they work together actually, right? So sometimes because it's a bit more difficult to innovate and, you know, keep the pace, and the employees are not necessarily, you know, are more execution focused than innovation focused. Sometimes it's a good deal, you know, to actually buy at the right time a startup to add products, you know, to your portfolio as a big company. So and some constraints also, one I didn't mention, you know, is those startups, right? Because they're more agile, they move quicker. Sometimes, they can get disrupted, by a small startup, right? So it's really key to have those business insights in a big corporation, internal and external, right? To always look at how the startup world is doing, and I'm hoping, we have also some corporate managers watching this training, and I'm hoping, it's going to give you some hints, to be able to really immerse yourself and understand much better the startup world. But for entrepreneurs, working with a corporation can be very interesting for all the advantages that it provides. Imagine you have a product, you develop it, and then you can use, the distribution network, their sales team, the trust that they have built to make your product, to put your product on the shelf, and to make the customer actually pay for it.